Hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'd just like to take a moment to thank Barometer and thank you, Diageo, for bringing me out here. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about cocktail menus and how important those are to the bar. So currently I have left Tippling Club, where we did create a couple of cocktail menus that were awarded Top 10 World's Best Cocktail Menu. On the right-hand side here, we have my business partner from my consultancy company called Sensorium, Chef Ryan Clift. He is the chef owner of Tippling Club. He's been working in the industry for about 28 years or so. He started when he was very young, working in the kitchens in Claridge's. Then he went over to Vue de Monde in Australia after working in Michelin-starred restaurants around Europe. He was running the most awarded restaurant in Australia. Attained 3 hats. It's the equivalent of 3 Michelin stars in Australia because they don't have the guide. And he has always been a huge supporter of bartenders and the drinks industry. Myself, we met each other back at Tippling Club. This is Tippling Club in Singapore, where we first met. I started there just over 2.5 years ago. I was the head bartender and group bar manager. For those of you who don't know Tippling Club, it's a tiny little restaurant bar right in the heart of Chinatown in Singapore. Along the bottom left there, you have the bar, which we can accommodate up to about 30 seats. In the middle, we have the restaurant, private dining room on the right. Up on the top there, we have the test kitchen and the laboratory. So Tippling Club back in 2008, we're arguably the first avant-garde cocktail bar. Obviously, everybody in the room knows Raffles and the Long Bar, home of the Singapore Sling. But Tippling Club were one of the first bars to break the mold. They've always been about innovation, always been about creativity, and more importantly, they've always been about having fun. So you guys can really understand what Tippling Club was about and the ethos of myself and Chef Ryan when we worked together. I'm going to show you a short video, The Day in the Life of Tippling Club.
Please don't go, please don't be crazy tonight.
you. So menus have always been very important to myself and Ryan. Tippling Club's obviously about the harmony of both kitchen and bar working together. This is an example of one of our dinner menus. It's very simple. Some of you might recognize the logo, the lineage across the middle, which also extends to our logo. This is the way that Chef Ryan creates his dishes. Along the top there, he'll have, say for example, he'll have an apple, next line foie gras, next line walnut. Along the bottom, he'll have maybe 20 different ways to impart that flavor into a dish. It's still, the dinner menu, this is still extremely simple. We call this one the gourmand or the 10 course. But with the snacks at the start and the sweet treats, you're looking about 20 courses. We never really want to overload our guests with too much information. Even the verbalage for the dishes, which I'll go and talk about it a little bit. The foie gras, textures of apple, cucumber, date and walnut. I'll show you an example of this dish in a moment, but there's about 20 different components that go into every single dish at Tippling. We were one of the first places in the world, and we were certainly the first place in Asia to introduce the concept of cocktail pairing. This was what we were known for, but we never really wanted to push this on our guests or use cocktails for sake of using cocktails because that's what we're known for. We wanted to always have the pairing bring out the best of the dish and the dish bring out the best of the pairing. So for a menu like that, we'll have 4 cocktail pairings. Again, with a lot of the preparations that went into our drinks, the same as the food, we'd always cut it back. Always make sure the text is very simple and easy to understand. The pairing for the foie gras, apple, brandy, salted caramel, and citrus. But again, there's about 8 different components that go into that. So this is an example of some of the food that we served. Top left there, we've got the foie gras and apple dish. Along the bottom, we have the lava lamp gazpacho. It's a clarified tomato gazpacho, poured tableside. The bubbles rise up like a 1970s lava lamp. In the middle, I'm going to talk a little bit about the aroma pairing for this dish later on. It's the Mandarin and Madras meteorite. Top right, crab, nashi pear, Kyoho grape, oba oil. Bottom right, this is always the dish that you swap gin and tonics for or beers with the kitchen team. It's a liquid chocolate tonka bean ganache. So this is some of the equipment that we had to play with at Tippling. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the room that'll be able to recognize a lot of the apparatus, recognize its use in cocktails. Rotavac, centrifuge, sonic prep, dehydrators, micron pipette, pressure cooker, Paco jet. But the only reason that we use this and these equipments is to purely bring out the best flavor. And that was always number one for either the kitchen or the bar. Flavor comes first. Flavor, aroma, texture, presentation. Always in that order. And I cannot express this enough, that the importance of using this equipment is to purely bring out the best flavor. The space along the top right there, that was also our private dining room. When it's not being used by the R&D chefs or the bartenders, and we later called this space the Gummy Bear Factory, after we made 1,200 gummy bears every single day at Tippling Club. That'd be also the space that served the private dining room. So now we're going to get to start talking about why we're all here today, is about cocktail menus. Again, I'm going to show you another short video of our first sensorium menu, the memory triggering menu. Along the sides of the presentation, you may see some of hands, eyes, noses, ears. That's my nose, that's Ryan's nose. Each of all these small details belong to either myself or Ryan. you. So, as you can see from the video, back when I was a lot thinner and before I started eating gummy bears every day, this was the first cocktail menu that we created. It was an aroma-led menu. I want to make it very clear that this menu wasn't about fragrance, it wasn't about aroma, it was about memory triggers. We wanted our guests to relive their cherished childhood memories through aroma, which is the best way to have your memory triggered, while they're in the bar. And this is down to the way the brain works. The part of the brain that's responsible for associative learning is also the one that's is also very close to the part of the brain that's responsible for sensory information. So it's why you're walking down the street, sometimes you'll smell the smell of freshly cut grass or the smell of rain or like a very unique aroma, and it'll always take you back to a very specific part of your time. This menu was a 10-month project. It started off pretty much the first week that I started at Tippling Club. Both myself and Ryan sat down, and he asked me, do I have any idea what I want to do with the menu? What direction do I want to take it? And it turns out we both had exactly the same idea. We know how important aroma is when it comes to flavor, and this is through a process called retronasal olfaction. And that's when you're eating or drinking. It's the aroma and odor molecules being pushed into the back of your nasal cavity. It's estimated that 90% of flavor comes from aroma alone. So next time you're having some food or a drink, take a sip, take a bite, and then do the same thing while you're pinching your nose like this, and you'll be staggered to see how different it is. So from day one, the concept started to be about scratch and sniff. When you get like a piece of paper or a book, again, this is something that's associated to childhood memories. You scratch a certain area of the page, and it'll release odor molecules. And the reason we moved away from that was because we wanted to have a menu that can be shared, that can be engaged. A group of 4 or less would get one of these menus. It'd sit down in the middle of the table, and each one, you'd smell the blotters and you pass it around. It's a sharing experience. It breaks down the barriers between not only employee, server, and the guest, but also between 2 people in a group. It really helps lubricate social situations. Each one of the aromas for the menu had never existed before. This was aroma creation between myself and Chef Ryan. Some of them were very conceptual aromas: forest, rain, leather, campfire, grass, and some of them were a little bit more approachable. This way we wanted to ensure that every single person that came to Tippling Club had at least experienced those aromas at some time in their life. The reason also that we had these special blotters, if you turned it over on the other side, it had not only the ingredients of the cocktail, but also our information for the bar: website, address, telephone number. We wanted our guests to steal these menus. They were encouraged to take them away. That way, you sat having a coffee the next day with one of your friends, you pull out our business card with our branding, and then you showed them. Again, it was part of our marketing strategy. It encouraged new guests to come into the bar all the time. We wanted a very unusual vessel to serve the menu. We wanted something that was still relevant to the bar world, a Hawthorne strainer, but still something that looked very abstract. This was a menu that was created in collaboration: bartender, myself, chef, Ryan, and also a designer and a perfumer. The designer acted with our direction, and so did the perfumer. So, who is IFF? And this was a group that we've had a relationship with now for 8 years. They're leading innovators of sensory experiences. And in terms of that, they don't mean cocktail menus. They mean aroma and flavor. The best way I can describe what this group does is if you walk into a convenience store, a 7-Eleven in Asia, a supermarket, there's a handful of these companies globally that pretty much handle anything that you can buy in there. So chocolate, sweets, crisps, aftershave, perfume, you name it. Even alcohol brands. If you go to a lot of these places, you can see that they help create those flavors. So these are some of the people that we work with. This is Karen. She's a huge supporter of Tippling Club. First came as a guest 8 years ago, and this is where the relationship began. An example of one of the laboratories, and also one of the technicians. When we reached out to Karen and told her about the project that we wanted to do, the first sensorium menu, memory triggers, first of all, it was the only company that we wanted to work with. And second, we got put in touch with their global creative guy called Bernard. So Bernard is this super cool Argentinian guy who lives in Amsterdam. And his job is, IFF turn to Bernard and say, what would you like to do this year? So a couple of years ago, I want to do an exhibition in the Tate Gallery. And okay, there you go, thank you very much. That's your job. So one of his projects that we worked with him a couple of years ago, extremely creative, extremely talented. And they created all these fragrances for us. You remember I showed you the Mandarin and Madras meteorite, the little orange ball of food? So as part of a special cocktail menu that we ran for Singapore Cocktail Festival one year, we wanted to have an extremely engaging menu that followed what we were already doing in the bar. So we turned to IFF and said, hey guys, can you make us the smell of outer space? I'm like, yep, done, thank you. Okay, it's that easy, that's crazy. So they took elements that exist in outer space and combined those with descriptors of astronauts that have done spacewalks. This is because the only people that actually know what space smells like is the astronauts. Once they come from their spacewalk, come back into the craft, the smell is so intense that it lingers on the suits, and this information was provided to IFF to help create us the Cosmos menu. So this is our next cocktail menu that we created. Again, this was like another 10-month project. So we finished the last menu. After service last night, me and Ryan sat down again like we did the first time at Tippling and said, okay, what's next? We were like, edible menu. We had a 1-month period where we focused on our systems, focused on the mise en place, the service, and then we started developing again. One more video. So with the previous menu, not Memlu, we looked to the past with memory triggers and aroma. Now we wanted to look to the future with flavor and dreams and desires. And we believe this to be the world's first completely edible menu. We do know about certain events where they have used an edible small chocolates to choose your whiskey, or there's a restaurant in Chicago that printed the menu on a piece of edible paper. But they're still running this at Tippling Club now. Again, 10 months work. There's a couple of links to the previous menu. IFF developed for us the smell of an old English sweet shop, again, triggering memories. And also the whole feel of the menu is very nostalgic. The flavors of these bears, which I'll run through in a moment, was, again, never existed. We took flavors that are synonymous with certain dreams or desires, and we put those into a gummy bear. That was the flavor of the bear, the flavor of the dream or desire it represents. Wherever possible, we also match the color of the bear to the dream and desire that it represents. So this menu was completely produced by the bar team at Tippling Club. 4 members of staff, including myself. Everything that you will see that's associated to the bar at Tippling was created by a bartender. All of the gummy bears are created by bartenders. All of the garnish that you'd see were created by bartenders. I'll show you an example of the drinks in a moment. Anything that you'd expect to come out of a pastry kitchen with the intricacy and detail of the garnish was made by either myself or some of the members of the bar team. We used to make 1,200 gummy bears every single day. By the time we got through maybe the first couple of weeks, we got pretty fast at it. It used to take us about 1 hour to cook the gummy bears, put them in a piston funnel like you saw in the video, pipette them out, and then maybe about half an hour to demold the previous day's menu. So I'm going to quickly run through all the flavors of the bears. We start off on the right here with Beauty, the white bear. This bear is flavored with makeup and rose. Next up, we have Happiness Bear, the little yellow one. This is flavored with citrus and honey. Flavors that are known to make you feel a little bit better, a little bit brighter. A lot of citrus is used in very fresh perfumes as well. Clinique Happy, for example, is a very citrus-led aroma. The little pink bear, this is Baby. So I just want to do a quick show of hands. Who in the room likes vanilla? So if you like vanilla, it means you were breastfed. There's natural vanillins that occur in breast milk. That's why companies like Heinz Ketchup always put vanilla into their recipes. It subliminally sparks that nostalgic feeling. Next up, the little orange bear is Power. This is flavored with powerful flavors, fire, spice. Next, we have Lust, the little red bear. And this is one of the hardest ones for us to translate into a flavor. We're like, what is lust? Lust for you can be very different to what lust from you could be. So we wanted to use natural aphrodisiacs, and we also found that one of the most enticing perfumes, I won't name the brand because I don't really want to get sued by them, had flavors of peach, tonka bean, again a little bit of vanilla. So we used that perfume as inspiration. Next up, the little green bear was Success. We used one of the world's most expensive wines, Domaine Romani Conti, and flavored it with Domaine Romani Conti. Next up is Peace, the little blue bear. Next to Success, this was flavored with jasmine and lemon. Next up, the blue bear next to it was Holiday. So Holiday was flavored with pina colada and sun cream. The little gray bear, that's Knowledge, flavored with old books and whiskey. And the purple bear towards the end, this is my least favorite bear, to the point where I can't even smell it anymore. When we were doing the R&D for this bear, I had to eat maybe 100 gummy bears to try and get the balance of the flavors right. So IFF made for us during the tasting sessions, we must have had 4 or 5, maybe 100 different tubs of flavors. Okay, so for this one, we want to try 7 flavors, and we'll blend them together. We're going to try 8 flavors for this one. So the Purple Bear is Supercar. It's flavored with petrol, leather, smoke, and metal. So it's a very interesting flavor. You know, when you get a bag of jelly beans, there's always one that you eat and you spit out because you can't stand it. We put that in there. The reason that we could use petrol, which is obviously something that isn't digestible, is we used cheap white truffle oil. And that's because cheap white truffle oil is made from a petroleum compound called dipethylene 4. Next up, this was my favorite bear to eat, actually. This was Indulgence, chocolate and strawberry. And last but not least, we have the Revenge Bear. All of the other Dreams and Desires bear are very happy, very positive. And we're like, how can we make Revenge, that dark dream and desire, stand out? So not only did we add umami into that bear to give it a different texture in the mouth, like I said to IFF, like, how can we flavor Revenge? I was like, do you guys have a blood flavor? Thinking they're going to think I'm crazy or weird. They started laughing. And I was like, why is everyone laughing? Well, I don't get the joke. And he said to me, why do you think when you buy meat from supermarkets, it tastes like meat when it's so mass-produced, so many chemicals in it? It's because these companies, in the meat that they sell in supermarkets, add blood flavoring. So why did we do these menus? Like I said at the start, Tippling Club's always about fun. And what is fun? Fun is engagement. Singapore's quite a fickle market where the consumers can be quite shy, can be quite timid, and they're not very much used to that sort of level of service that you can get in a lot of bars around the world. How was your day? The hospitality. Is there anything else I can get for you? This would help us break down those barriers. They would start asking us questions. If you're on a first date and somebody drops a bag of gummy bears down in front of you, you're curious. You want to ask questions. Second is experience. You know, like we live in such a wonderful world where I believe good food and beverage is no longer enough. The average consumer wants that little bit extra for the money. They want something to talk about, something to put on social media. And obviously, the menus that we have created are photogenic. People do want to put them on social media, but the most important thing is about fun. I also want to be quite clear on costs. I think this is very important when talking about cocktail menus. Tippling Club, tiny little fine dining restaurant, half of that 30-seat cocktail bar. So how did we make this work? And it is as simple as cross-pollination, working with other industries, asking people, talking to people. And more often than not, you'd be surprised and they're more than happy to help. So these menus were designed as well to inspire and inform our guests. You're eating a gummy bear, it has the same predominant flavors of the cocktail. You're smelling the aroma, has the same flavors inside the aroma as the main cocktail. They also help to communicate our identity. Tippling Club's always about fun, innovation, creativity, and these menus are a perfect embodiment of that philosophy. Both of the menus were available in the dining room, not just the bar. The gummy bears, obviously, they are sweet. We didn't want to interfere with too many palates. We wanted our guests to still have that experience, so they would be offered it for dinner. We always made sure that our beverage was made of an extremely high quality and consistently, which is something that I feel is very important if you are running a bar, you are part of that business, to understand how important speed can be. Diageo also have asked me to say that if you ever want to have any questions about menu development, they are doing seminars in the B&B room, so please feel free to come by. So here's an example of our drinks. So along the top there, we have the Sonic Negroni. Again, we wanted to make sure all of our drinks were an example of Tippling Club, the embodiment of Tippling Club, bartender, chef, coming together. We also wanted to make sure that all the drinks could be made quickly. Each one of the drinks would take no more than 30 seconds. Quick stir, quick shake, glass from the freezer, garnish, dehydrator, fridge, freezer. Speed is so important, especially for us. Sometimes we can be accommodating 100 people, 30 seats in the restaurant, 30 seats in the bar, and up to 40 seats outside on the busiest night. For a 4-man bar team, this was make or break. Everything was pre-mixed for consistency and speed. And also, the garnishes. The reason we wanted to create them like this is because they're fast, they're extremely cheap. A lot of them are made from sugar. It's stable, the shelf life's high. And they're just fun. Again, it's engagement. Take the pear at the bottom left, for example. Comes to the table. It's a pear sorbet in a lime gelatin. These things, to make a batch, could take 3 hours. You blowtorch the dehydrated vanilla bean along the top as it goes off to the table. We also wanted to make sure these garnishes were relevant to the story of the cocktail. In the middle, we have the rain from the first menu. So how do we make this part of the story? Edible rain cloud as a garnish, rain spirit. So we used to make the rain spirit using our Rotavap. Inside the smell of rain, there's a compound called geosmin. Geosmin is very present in beetroots. So we used to make a beetroot distillate, marry that with edible stone when the rain falls on the stone on the pavement. For the stone, we used to get an edible clay called kaolin clay, which is found in the plains of West Africa. It's what the women eat out there to get the nutrients they need for their unborn children. So I think we're just about coming to a close. Does anybody have any questions? I think there's a roving microphone somewhere. Andre? After? No worries. Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me in Kiev. Such a beautiful city, and thank you. Thank you.